Hi everybody, it's Nikki again, and my two-part Guardian Connect video just became just became three. Because although I'm 42 years old, my mom showed up at the door, and I handled it like my best 12-year-old self and hung up the phone really quick because I don't make YouTube videos in front of my family. So, and that's my right. So anyway, here I am on part three. I'm gonna try to remember where I was, and then I'm gonna try to act my age. So, okay. No medical advice. This is all personal experience, personal opinion, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, I think where I left off, and I'd go ahead and repeat it anyway. I think I was down to the overall ease of use for the Mini Med Connect, the Guardian Connect. And this part I wouldn't mind kind of, saying over again, repeating, because it really was the biggest surprise of all, which is that the Guardian Connect really was an easy sensor to use. And so far, in my experience, up until 2 years ago, I wasn't really doing much testing, or I wasn't doing enough to really know what I was doing. And then about 2 years ago, I started to do lots of testing. And in the 2 years where I've known what I'm doing, and when I kind of look back over my years of not really knowing, my general summary of what I've gotten from Medtronic to date has been either sensors that are not easy to use or sensors that are just not particularly accurate. So when I am talking about the Guardian Connect and I say it's easy to use, I mean it's kind of like a low maintenance, just like putting on the Dexcom, just like putting on the Libre. None of these sensors are perfect. I don't mean that they're going to work for every single person. I just mean that coming off of the Guardian 3, this is kind of one of those sensors. You just put it on and you do your 2 calibrations per day, but that's about it. And it gives you some pretty nice numbers. So I was really happy with the overall ease of use. Potential of use for treatment. This may have been where I'd left off. Interestingly enough, you still are not supposed to use this transmitter, this sensor, without testing with a meter BG. The reason I say that's interesting is because both the Libre and the Dexcom G6 have both been approved to use in treatment. And this means that even though they'll tell you that if you have symptoms and the number doesn't match it, or if you suspect a rising or falling blood sugar or whatever, there's definitely times you're supposed to test to confirm. But if all is kind of quiet and you're not worried about it and you want to eat something, you're supposed to be able to look at your G6 and say, okay, it's a 150. I'll give myself a half unit or a unit or 2 units, whatever, as a correction plus a food bolus. The reason this is to no end interesting to me is because the Guardian 3 has not been approved for this. For that one, they say that you need to do finger sticks, but the Guardian 3 is the one that's associated with auto mode, which is deciding how much insulin you get or don't get. So the Guardian 3 needs you to look at it, but it doesn't need any kind of checking before it messes with your insulin. It's a very interesting thing, and it sounds like the Guardian Connect has not been approved. Although as soon as I say that, I think I vaguely remember maybe it has just been approved. I'll have to double check that. From what I was able to find, it still has not been approved. Maybe their next one is going to be approved or something like that. But anyway, but the Guardian 3 has not been. Or the Guardian 3 was just approved. I'll come back to that section, but all very interesting stuff. And basically, maybe up until recently, the Libre and the Dexcom could be, and the Guardians have not been. So. All right, so I screwed that section up. Warm up, 2-hour warm up. And so far, people report different things on the Guardian 3. They say that they sometimes get 45 minutes and they sometimes get 2 hours. People claim to be able to skip the warm up altogether. I say that like they're liars, but I believe them. If you marinate overnight in this net, people report different things. So far with the Guardian Connect, it was a solid 2 hours every single time. But either way, it's not 1 hour and it's not 12 hours. So that's your anticipated warm-up time. Applicator inserter, I won't do the whole thing again. I'll just say that the inserter is reusable, which kind of lends itself over into the waste category. It is nice not to be throwing away the inserter, because it's a big and bulky inserter. My problem with the inserter is those buttons. I just don't think that the pressure mechanism or whatever, I don't know what I'm talking about there either. I don't feel like it's great, and I have a lot of times getting the thing to trigger the sensor insertion. So that's what I would say on that one. Arrows, this is actually kind of interesting. I think all of these sensors have arrows. They all typically have a, single, double, triple, something like that, and then angled arrows. In general, I don't look at the arrows because I don't find them particularly helpful, especially with a rapidly changing blood sugar. And because I can't really rely on them, it means that they can be misleading. And so in general, I don't look at them. However, the better the sensor, the more reliable they become. So even if the Dexcom is showing, one arrow up, and then 5 minutes later it's showing 2 arrows up, and then 5 minutes later it's showing 1 arrow up again, even though that 1 arrow up still makes it look like I'm rising, if you put it into context with that 2 arrows up, I know I'm beginning to slow down. So I've learned how to use my arrows like this, and that's fine. But the Guardian arrows, the Guardian 3 arrows used to be really misleading because they could be so delayed with the lag that you could look down and panic, and you could go, oh my God, I'm 3 arrows up. Or I'm 3 arrows down. That was the big one. I'm still crashing, eat more carbs. And in the meantime, you're not 3 arrows down, you're back to a 140 and rising. So they were difficult. Coming back around to the Guardian Connect and their arrows, and its arrows, and the arrows are pretty good. It's back to kind of Dexcom, like, yeah, you have to have context for them to make sense. I would never look at the arrows alone and say, okay, I'm rising or falling. But with context, they're helpful again to have an idea if it looks like I'm slowing down or if it looks like I'm still, I'm picking up. Anyway, so they're back to being a fairly good representation of my current trend, and for me, that's about as much as I can ask from a sensor. Waist, I just mentioned it. The Guardian Connect, which is exactly the same inserter and sensors as the Guardian 3, has the same amount of waste, and all of these sensors have a lot of waste. The packaging is pretty big, it's bulky. The skin tack or the alcohol wipes or whatever it is you're putting on. So they all produce a fair amount of waste. The Dexcom really stands out in my mind sometimes as the one that, is the most, because there's that bulky that bulky insert that you have to throw away every single time. However, if you look at how often you're going to be changing, it kind of puts a different spin on it. And if I know that once every 15 to 25 days, I'm changing my Dexcom versus once every 6 to 7 days or 6 to 8 days maybe, I'm changing my Guardian, it does change exactly how much waste they're producing because I'm changing one less often. So as far as waste, they all have waste problems. But this one is up there among the better, except that you have to change it more often than the other ones. So it's not among the better. Okay, so that's that. General thoughts, and I'll do this as quickly as possible because some of them are repeats. Lag, really pleasantly surprised by how good the lag was on the Guardian Connect. I'm still talking about it and boring the crap out of my family and friends and neighbors and cat. But it was really impressive. And I did not know Medtronic could do that in a sensor. So it's kind of cool, and it kind of gives me a little bit of hope that maybe, they could do that with a sensor that's attached to a pump that's delivering your insulin, that's deciding on your insulin. 2, iSig. I don't know who else out there is a nut job like I am, but I love the iSig and I love the calibration factor. And I was initially interested in the Connect because of the fact that I thought it would have the iSig, and I was very sad to find out that it doesn't. So if you are somebody who likes to use your calibration factor for calibrating, that's no longer available, and nobody is sadder than I am. Errors, significant reduction in amount of errors. Again, the Guardian 3 was screaming all the time. The Guardian Connect isn't. It's right back to, if it needs something, it's going to let you know. But in general, they are very reasonable requests. And the trade-off is that it's giving me this nice, good number. Again, I don't know how much of it's because it's a standalone sensor and it doesn't have all those restrictions or burdens of a CGM that is tied in with the pump. Day 5 seems to mark, just like on the Guardian 3, seems to mark kind of the beginning of the deterioration of the sensor. So you do start seeing a few more errors there. There is more difficulty, I think, calibrating around day 5. And again, without the calibration factor, you can't really do much. Like you can't try to pin down the best time. That's what I got caught trying to calibrate twice on a blood sugar of a 115 on day 5 or day 6. And it's because I had no idea what was, I think I was a 115 and rising quickly. So it just wouldn't take the calibration, but it was a 115, so it was frustrating. So those things still exist, but that's day 5, and I guess that's fair enough territory on all sensors once you get towards the end of the sensor's life. Accuracy, again, amazing. I don't know, but maybe I shouldn't get carried away. Very impressive. Good, solid accuracy, and good, solid accuracy both during stable blood sugar and a rapidly changing blood sugar. It was good to see. And calibrations, 2 a day. They seem to take between 30 seconds and 5 minutes to complete, but some part of the circle will light up to let you know that you're in. So that's good. It's kind of a pretty low stress effort. Accepted versus failed calibrations. I did mention this. I think I said the wrong numbers though. 25% of them failed. However, 11% of them failed legitimately. So 4 out of 36 of my calibrations failed legitimately, meaning that it should have taken the number. It was a blood sugar of a 115. And it would not. The other ones failed because I was messing around and trying to extend and everything else. So that's fair enough. Alarms are good. Setup was easy. And the rest of it is kind of blah, 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 blah. The i6 stuff. That's it. 12 and a half minutes, 3 videos. Guardian Connect overall is a pretty cool sensor. And I look forward to getting my 670G Guardian 3 combo set back up again and slapping them both on and letting them duke it out, because I think that will be fun. But I'm a geek like that. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.